Welcome to On the Chain, where crypto, geopolitics, and power structures get to collide with one another. Tonight, we're actually going to dive deep on the crypto side. Something significant is happening with the Flare networks and the XRP ecosystem. We're talking about FXRP on Ethereum. Got some things going on with XRP and Ethereum. Got some things with Flare, and we'll get into that. Institutional DeFi rails, protocol managed yield, and what Hugo Philion is building as a compute layer with the XRPL. Now, this isn't hype. This is actual infrastructure. If the XRPL is the asset issuance layer, Flare may be positioning itself as the programmable execution engine. I think Flare is really up to a lot of amazing things. We're seeing some tremendous development day to day. There's new things dropping with Flare, and once we start really digging into all of this, this is changing the conversation around tokenization completely. But this is really only half the story, because at the same time, we're going to dive deep also globally. Political fractures are widening, and what we're actually seeing on a global scale and here domestically, election integrity is getting questioned, whether it's in Michigan, Georgia, Arizona, or beyond. There's cultural shifts going on in Japan. They're really looking to make sure that they are securing their cultural legacy for the next few generations. At least we're seeing church burnings increase around Europe, and we know the culprits. Billions, even trillions in funding discrepancies here. We're talking about $1 trillion in discrepancy that taxpayer dollars are actually going to fund things like terrorism and some of these NGOs. Just not good. We have senators that are overseas speaking against U.S. leadership, almost bordering on treasonous behavior. NGOs are under scrutiny for actual funding of illegal immigration. Now, these aren't isolated headlines. These are actual signals. And we're connecting all the dots from crypto to the geopolitics, why we need to understand all of these different variables. Financial systems are being restructured as we speak. Political systems are destabilizing and restabilizing as they get rebuilt and reformed. Capital is moving accordingly. We're seeing new capital formation, capital protection, power struggle, power threshold, power limits are being met when it comes to the financial expectation of that power. You got to hold power. You got to hold the monetary flow. Tonight, we are going to separate emotion from strategy. We look at what matters, what doesn't, and where positioning may actually matter next. We got to be in tune with what's coming. We really do. We're not going to talk slogans. We're not talking hysteria, just clarity. So if you're ready to kick this thing off, I'm ready. So let's get into it. Let's go. Here we go. All right, welcome. When you pop in, make sure you give a quick shout out where you are tuning in from. We always like to know what state, what country, what time zone, all the different things that you have to give us a quick shout out over. We've got New Zealand, we've got Florida, we have people coming in from Oregon, across the board so far. So give a quick shout out where you are tuning in from, and we will look forward to connecting with you guys here. Big things happened over in the Netherlands. Can you believe they just passed a 36% tax on unrealized gains? I think we're going to see a major fleecing of money flow out of the Netherlands. I can't believe that they would do something like that. They're taxing their citizens 36% on unrealized gains. Money that doesn't exist. They are going to destroy people's investments to the point I was reading some expos, people that have lived in the Netherlands for their whole lives, born there, raised there, that are leaving. They're already planning on leaving. They're going to take their money and go. So stock, crypto, anything you invest, you'll get destroyed. Absolutely destroyed. The Democrats tried it here in the US. They wanted to tax unrealized gains. It is such a penalty. You're not going to want to do anything. All these governments want to do, they want to hand out, they want people to be subservient to them. They want to penalize those that are trying to do better. They're removing any incentive that you have to really build yourself up, build a business, build your savings. They don't want that. But then where does the money come from? If you don't have producers, you don't have people fueling the tax base like that, where does the money come from? So they keep raising money on people. They want to give stuff away for free. But what we're finding, and the fraud in the system, and the lie that people believe, is that, oh, we get free healthcare, our systems look nice, our infrastructure looks nice. And granted, you go to some cities and they have beautiful train systems and all of this, and everything looks really nice. But what is the total sacrifice, for your freedom? How much are you willing to give up, from a personal freedom perspective, to where you have nothing left? And then eventually you don't even get to benefit from that environment any longer, because they're taking every last dime that you have, which is a travesty. And granted, you want to look the other way, and then you see the flow of funds. Where's the money going? Is the money really being used to the betterment, or are they putting a patch on it? They're making it look glitzy and glamoury, but when it really comes down to it, you're starting to see what the money's being actually used for, which is the undermining of your civil society, of your freedoms. They're removing your freedoms. They're making it look like you have, but you really, it's really, really crazy. Anyhow, what we want to get into today, I really want to start talking about Flare, because I believe there's a lot of great things that are happening with Flare. We haven't done a Flare update in a little while. So let me start here. I'm going to start opening a few of these articles that we have specifically on Flare. If you guys have any comments, questions, feedback, go ahead and throw it into the chat, especially if there's something in and around Flare that you thought was pretty amazing, want to talk about. But here we have, uh, we've never been free. That's part of the issue, is they're removing more and more of those freedoms, and they just want to make it almost net impossible to have any semblance of that freedom. So here, this is Flare posted this. Now, if you care about XRPL tokenization and institutional adoption, this is a clip from Ripple's XRP Community Day, and this was Hugo Philion, and this is: tokenization is only meaningful if institutions can run real workflows on top of it. Now, here's Flare 2.0 plus protocol managed will not only aim to unlock that layer for the XRPL, but it will allow both XRP and the XRPL to do more. So let's hear what Hugo had to say there. It's basically like a 20-second bit, but let me play this real quick. Here we go.
There's been a lot of conversation today about tokenization, and Ripple is leading the charge in tokenization and putting that on the XRPL. And the question is, once you have all these tokenized assets, what can you do with them? Well, really, what we're building with the compute layer and with protocol managed wallets, you can build any institutional or crypto focused use case. So what we're building with our compute layer and what we define as Flare 2.0, it won't just let XRP do more, it'll let the XRP ledger itself do more without having to do any protocol changes. There's been a lot of conversation today.
So I like this here. Let's just hear this last part again.
Use case. So what we're building with our compute layer and what we define as Flare 2.0, it won't just let XRP do more, it'll let the XRP ledger itself do more.
That's huge, right? So they're looking to develop, expand, and really utilize the technology that's at hand. But what they're doing with this compute layer and Flare 2.0, really assessing how do you use XRP more? How does it become more day to day? But then the XRPL, there's so much technology built in and around the XRPL that really right now as it sits, it's relatively untapped. There's only a handful of companies that are really building into real world utility. One is Ripple. Ripple's building towards the institutions, and then Flare. And Flare has been, we're year 3 since they started the airdrop, and the airdrop's now over. But I can't believe the time went by in those 3 years. But we've seen consistent growth, development, and maturity. We've seen Flare mature to a point where I would put them almost on par with the direction that Ripple is going at this point. But from if we look around and we want to really assess crypto companies, I would put them on the mature side of crypto developing companies, not just from the time that they've been around, because you can be around and still not mature, but they have built in such a way that they're assessing real world utility, problem, solution. So you have to build something that's going to be used real world utility to have a benefit, but you also have to assess that there was a problem, a real problem, and your product is a solution to that problem, and there you get the real world utility. And that's Flare is on that track. And so we have 2 companies now, Flare, Ripple, both utilizing XRP, XRPL as a construct of their base technologies. Ripple developing into a heavy institutional focus beyond the XRP, but utilizing XRPL, assessing the strategic benefit of the stablecoin and beyond, and everything that they're going to do within the financial institutions. Flare's moving it in such an amazing direction as well. And I love the fact that we can hear from Hugo, and he's out there, talking about this. Now, to that point, let's look at exactly where Flare, kind of a mark where the FXRP is at this point. So we can say, okay, great, you can talk the talk, but now let's take a look at where the FXRP is. So let's zoom into this real quick. Here we go. So let's look at the Flare FXRP supply. So the FXRP supply is approaching 100 million, with the majority that's locked into DeFi. Now, here's the comment from Flare Networks. That's what happens when XRP gets real on-chain utility. So again, not just speculative growth, but this is real on-chain utility, collateral liquidity, and yield primitives that scale from retail usage today to institutional workflows over time. So again, they're also projecting their focus, their growth, their development, also hedging on the institutional dynamic. So not just the retail usage, but the institutional usage. They're anticipating a major shift that is coming within the financial infrastructure, the adoption of big financial institutions, the adoption of government banking infrastructure of the crypto assets, whether it's going to be XRP or beyond. But real world utility, there's a major shift coming. We're looking at, from an investment perspective, a lending perspective, all the things that can be done utilizing Flare, utilizing the XRPL, cross chain, because we're also going to look at what's happening in combination with Ethereum. And this becomes really important because we can't stay isolated in the silos. We have to look cross chain. We have to tap in to the benefit or the beneficial aspects of other technology that is being developed out there, that's moving also kind of at this breakneck speed, right? I want to say lightning speed, but I think now we're going to start seeing faster and faster pace, similar to the fast pace that AI is moving right now. And yesterday we talked a little bit about the incorporation of AI with blockchain and how that can really fundamentally change the pace of inclusion of the technologies together based on the growth factor, the speed of it. And I think that, my opinion, but as we look at AI and its use uh, of the financial kind of infrastructure internally of AI, being in blockchain makes the most sense. Tapping into the various chains, whichever one might be most beneficial, but that would also have to be cross chain. It can't be siloed necessarily just into one, but there's so much to where we're really going. Right. So Ducky McScrooge is saying, I hope changes around the corner for XRP. We need to get the clear. We definitely need regulatory clarity. That is definitely, of critical importance. There's some other really important things that have to be passed as well, beyond just the Clarity Act. Clarity Act definitely does. We need that clear cut determination of how we are going to interact with crypto asset in the United States to set a tone for the rest of the world to follow. But at the same time, one of the key acts that went through Congress, got passed through the House, is now sitting in Senate, and I believe that they're going to find a path to get this through, which would be the Save America Act, which is making sure that all voting is based off of voter ID. We have to save our sovereignty. So if you have no sovereignty, anything else that we talk about, I don't care if it's crypto or fiat or gold, it lacks relevancy. So I think there's some real key acts and moves that have to be made within Congress ASAP. We also have an election coming up in November, and we have primaries coming up in August. So there's going to be potential delay or maybe a potential speed up. Maybe they're going to try to push the Clarity Act through, but I honestly don't think it goes through in this session. I believe it's going to wait until 26, meaning the 26, 27 session. So obviously we're kind of coming to a conclusion of this year. The November election is right around the corner. So as we kind of push through to that next election cycle, then after that, it's going to be all hands on deck, because there's other things that that are going to go into the Clarity Act. There's more development within crypto, and we're beginning to see the acknowledgement or recognition at the government levels of the normalcy of crypto, meaning that it's going to become and is already on path to become a normal part of our day-to-day financial infrastructure, and that is very, very important. So as we start seeing the relevancy of it, the other part is that we're still on the roller coaster. So you talk to people that are not 100% familiar, and we talked about this the other day. Chip was on, and I think it was Trace Gallagher. It might have been someone else on Fox News. I forget exactly who it was, but they were talking about the kidnapping of the one reporter's mother, and where is she? But there was someone putting out a Bitcoin ransom, and he kept referring to the Bitcoin wallet as a purse. Now, it's been out for more than 10 years now, that and everybody knows it's a Bitcoin wallet, and maybe just he had a lapse of kind of mental state for that moment, couldn't think of wallet. Maybe it didn't make sense to him at that moment, so all he could think of was purse. But we need to get the vernacular down. People have to be very it has to become part of our normal lexicon. We have to say, okay, we're going to talk about the wallets. We have to talk about Coinbase. We have to talk about cold storage, or is it institutional? Is it retail? What are the exchanges? What are the ETFs? Why are they investing in crypto? What does it mean if you're putting crypto into a treasury? All of this stuff is happening right now, kind of in real time, and we're seeing all of these components also occurring. People are investing from a retail perspective. People are investing from a corporate perspective. There's institutional utility that's occurring. We just talked about with Flare. We're talking about with Ripple. All that development is taking place. But without the regulatory clarity, I mean, there all these things. It's amazing how fast all of these you know things are going right now. I mean, it's really mind. I think back to like 2017, 2018, when they introduced the Token Taxonomy Act, and Chip and I got a group of YouTubers together to make a video for Congress, and that was for Congressman Warren Davidson's office. So we put it together, sent it to them. They were going to use that as they went on an explanatory mission to get other congressional representatives on board with understanding why crypto was important to the community. And so that was kind of the objective of the video that we made for them on request. And so we put that together. I don't know that, what kind of traction it had in convincing anybody. Maybe it did, maybe it didn't. But what we've seen from that point, so let's say 2018, 2019, it was probably 2019. Now fast forward, so we're like 6 years, 7 years out, and we see how much dialogue there's been over cryptocurrencies, Bitcoin, and others within the congressional representative spaces. Puts us on path. I mean, it's really setting the track that we're moving in a direction, whether it's, again, even as we kind of assessed when the Clarity Act was rolled out, both Chip and I both said not going to happen until the next election cycle. We just had President Trump come in first year, a lot of momentum, a lot of great things happened through this first year. It's the second year that's going to be instrumental, especially when it comes to regulatory clarity. So I believe that, that we're going to see some amazing things yet to come. So not to keep belaboring that point, but I think it's really important that we hone in and understand this, the dynamic of it. All right, let's put this up. This is some more, right? So this is new institutional rails are live via Hex Trust. This is coming from Flare Network. Mint and redeem FXRP, stake FLR natively, designed for custody and compliant first workflows. This is more institutional XRPFi, Rails, FXRP minting, and FLR staking with Hex Trust. And let's see if there was any commentary on this, not ads for glasses. I like what Andrew is saying here. So much news lately, it's hard to keep up. It really is. It's just like every day, every couple days, there's something new that's being dropped, some more information. And if we look at Hex Trust, regulated institutional digital asset market service, custody and staking for builders, investors, and service providers, the leader in digital asset solutions. So this is pretty, it's good. This is really really solid. Let's give him a follow. I realize I'm not following him there. All right. So next on the Flare agenda, because we have a ton of stuff, I have a few other things to talk about on Flare. This is really just all in the past week. So let's see here. What's this next one? Here we go. So so this is FXRP is now live on Ethereum, bridged in seconds via Stargate Finance. Let's hover over Stargate Finance. Here's another one. Give these guys a follow. The best bridge in DeFi. This unlocks collateral use in money markets like Morpho, access to deep Ethereum side liquidity, composable yield strategies across chain. XRPFi just went multi-chain. This is phenomenal, right? We don't see the same happening on other platforms where they're looking at cross-chain dynamic. The XRPL is built for cross-chain. And if you can tap into it, and that's what Flare had talked about right from the beginning. They had and it's amazing to have the kind of the vision where all the others were looking to create silos for their chain. Flare is saying as they're building their company and solving the problem, which is utilizing smart contract, but assessing how can we get the institution, how can we get within this financial infrastructure. You can't be siloed. You have to go cross chain and you have to be inclusive of the different assets. So boom, there you go. Now Ethereum, right? More yield strategies, more sustainable. Got to do it. You got to do it. You can't be silo focused. So let's look at one more, and then I want to answer that last comment. Actually, we got a couple more here. Man, I just love this. It was funny as I was looking. I'm like, is there anything interesting from Ripple? Anything on XRP? Anything interesting on Flare that we can dig into? And yes, there's a ton of interesting on Flare. Look at this. And then it's also relevant back to the XRP guys. So here we go. FXRP on Flare Networks unlocks utility. FXRP on Ethereum unlocks liquidity. So here we have utility, liquidity. As an ERC20 FXRP, our ERC20 token, FXRP can move through established Ethereum pools and dApps, enabling cross-chain yield strategies and broader collateral access. So how amazing is that? Now, all those guys over there on the Ethereum, hey, guess what? Now you have access to Flare and the FXRP. Now you get some exposure to XRP. Here's the multi-chain deployment, multi-chain capital deployment. It's changing the game. Flare's changing the game. Nobody else is changing the game right now, but Flare is changing the game. This is what it's all about. You got to go cross chain. You have that cross chain dynamic. They're well ahead. So XRP, FXRP, multi-chain capital deployment. This is the flywheel compounding. I love it. I really like to see how Flare is moving with this. Okay. So FXRP and Ethereum mainnet and what it means. Man, it's fantastic. What else are people saying here? With this, let's see. Scroll down. The bridge between Flare and Ethereum is actually big. XRP getting liquidity on ETH changes everything. There's more movement of money on Ethereum than on XRP, on the XRPL that flow through XRPL. Massive amounts of attention and focus on Ethereum because of all the ERC20s. Think about the NFT space. The NFT space through Ethereum, you can't even compare where it's at. Obviously, first mover advantage, but when we look at like XRP Cafe, the amount of transaction is minuscule in comparison to what's happening with Ethereum. The whole world is trading NFT mostly through Ethereum, right? We see some through Solana and then through some with Bitcoin, but the real focus has been Ethereum. You've got to bridge it. You've got to find that path. We've got to give and have exposure given to the XRPL, to all of those that are within the Ethereum space that have been utilizing ERC20 based tokens, that are buying and selling and trading ERC20 based NFTs. This is the dynamic, real major. Has to happen. This is where the entire space starts moving forward instead of just kind of getting stagnant in everyone's isolation in their isolated silos. All right, so let's move on. There's a couple more key articles here that I want to get into, but let me pull this over. And then before I talk about this one, let me just go here. What is up, everyone that's jumping in right now? Make sure you guys give some comment, which will be great. Like to see that. But Poker Moat was saying, what's crazy is all the good news, yet the prices are still stagnant. the entire market has dropped, right? As much as people want to believe that somehow XRP or Ethereum or any of the other assets have somehow diverged and have separated from Bitcoin, that's not the case, right? Bitcoin rules the roost. Bitcoin moves, dictate the movement of the rest of the market pretty much at large. You might see some small movements within, like, maybe Bitcoin's not having a big marginal change where XRP maybe went from $1.18 back to $1.50, whatever it's at now. I'm not sure what it's at today. Bitcoin's way down. The market's trending way down. Someone was asking me, well, what was the causation? What was the factor that caused Bitcoin to drop? I mean, there's some uncertainties on a global scale about certain things that are happening. But let's go back to the typical speculative cycle of cryptocurrency in general. Bitcoin hit a massive high of 125, was it? 126, whatever that number was. And then it was sliding, and it's been sliding. Every time Bitcoin has hit a newsworthy major number, right? So even think back to that first big cycle, and there might have been some before that, but think about that 2007, 2018 time when it hit 20,000 and slid back to 3. All right, but the hype of that of the news cycle hit 20, and then it was sliding back, and people say, "Oh, well, now it's done." Right? Bitcoin's decimated, and all the other assets decimated with it. Some of these assets, like XRP, still haven't realized their all-time high again. Bitcoin's making all-time highs. Ethereum made all-time highs. Some of the other assets made all-time highs. XRP still hasn't made all-time highs. But lots of good news, a lot of development. The space is still kind of in the toddler phase at large. If we look at where we're at cryptocurrency-wise, what are we, 12 years, 13 years? Well, I guess we're a little more than that now, right? So let's go to, let's say 2010. So we're 2009. So I guess we're making some, we're definitely making some big advancements here. I mean, we're coming up, on almost 20 years of Bitcoin. Think about that. We're 17 years, 16, 17 years into Bitcoin. So the 20-year mark can be very instrumental. But I think, one of the points, and this was brought up over here by Ducky McScrooge, is the Clarity Act, right? Regulatory clarity. Let's put it that. With the absence of regulatory clarity, a lot of the big development in the U.S. Is still going to struggle to take place. So we need clear-cut regulatory clarity to move the direction that we need to, that we want to, and all of that. Joe Budd is saying only news that moves the price immediately is bad. Yeah. Well, it always seems like good news crushes crypto. Bad news, I don't know, seems to raise it. The Epstein thing definitely had a little bit of a mark because people thought somehow it was interconnected. That was all, just made up. So there were people saying that Epstein was Satoshi. I mean, just some nonsense. Are people globally, though, we're in the bigger, grander scheme of it. If we look at big flow of money, are people in other countries as focused on what happened with Epstein as we are in the United States? I mean, maybe in the UK because they have some royal family members that might have been involved with Epstein, but in other countries, other continents, are people as hyper focused on Epstein as we are? Are people in Asia hyper focused on Epstein files? As we see all the flows of XRP and other assets in Korea, Japan, Singapore, throughout the Middle East, are people really focused on that? I don't know that for a fact. I think we'd have to take a look at that. But I think sometimes, so the news media, there's also, their objective of still trying to slow it down or destabilize the crypto space. There's a struggle that's going on. We can't forget about the power struggle, the geopolitical aspect of why the crypto market goes up and trends back down. Why aren't we getting clear cut regulatory clarity? Who's holding up the regulatory clarity? Which senators, which congressional representatives? What do they have to gain by making sure that they don't see regulatory clarity, or that they stand in the way of regulatory clarity, like an Elizabeth Warren, who is financed by the big banking infrastructure? But do the banks benefit from crypto? Maybe they're not ready. Infrastructurally, they're not ready to fully adopt, so they need to slow it down. But at the same time, there's individuals, players within it that don't want to relinquish their power, and they know crypto brings decentralization, brings more transparency, so they're afraid of that as well. So I think there's multiple layers to exactly what has to happen. Obama's fixer had to quit because her uncle, emails, right? There's a lot going on with that. It's huge. There's a lot of big things definitely that have come out from that. The political echelon here in the US, and it is probably on both sides of the aisle for sure, but the Democrats are up against some shit like I don't think they've ever seen before. The level of information, the amount of information that's finally coming out on election fraud, and we'll get into that here in a minute before we wrap up the hour. But let's try to stick to Flare. I want to keep going through Flare. Now this is big. This was a Flare meetup, Seoul meetup 2026. This is coming up, hasn't happened yet. This is going to take place March 8th. If you happen to be in Gangnam in Seoul, you can meet up at the Albert Cafe. That whole area of Gangnam is really cool over in Seoul. They have a cool mall over there. You can get the Gangnam style statue. They have the hands. You can go take pictures with it. But that area, that mall, that's where that big library is. It's like a cafe, kind of bookstore, but they have like floor to ceiling stacked with books. Really, really cool place. If you find yourself over in Seoul, go visit that. There's a lot of other cool things to see in Seoul as well. But if you happen to be there March 8th, go to Albert Cafe. Go check out the Flare meetup in Seoul, Korea. Flare is hosting a community meetup in Seoul. Come experience the XRPFi, FXRP, and the latest updates from the Flare ecosystem in person. Now, what is that going to mean? Let's see. Introduction to the Flare network, how to utilize Flare and XRPFi DeFi, community networking, $2,000 worth of Flare giveaway event. That might be worth the flight over to Seoul on its own. $2,000 worth of FLR Flare giveaway event. Buffet style finger food. I'm sure it's going to be amazing. Probably amazing food over there too. Champagne, beer, and beverages will be provided. Man, I'm liking this. I like this already. Flare t-shirts, socks, merchandise, all sorts of great things. If you're going to attend, there's a link and make sure their attendance will be confirmed after you are approved to go. Experience the DeFi expansion of XRP together with Flare. Man, this is exciting. This is truly, truly exciting to see that Flare is out there and they're doing their meetups and they're investing some cash. So it's not just Ripple. Everyone's so focused on heavily Ripple centric because they were the ones throwing money around with their Ripple parties and all the other things that have been going on. So hang on. There we go. So now what is this? This also from Hugo Philion. Flare's tech is showing true development. Where are they to date, right? Flare's tech is already bringing XRP to institutional capable DeFi. Super impressive. They're talking the talk, walking the walk. Flare's tech can help transform XRPL beyond a payments powerhouse into the preeminent tokenization platform through privacy and confidential compute. So that's it. If the primary focus has been on payments, then now let's look at how can we get to tokenization. Well, Flare is going to make it happen, right? So Hugo says, I see XRPL as the asset issuance layer and Flare as the compute layer. This is big. A lot of things getting ready to happen. Common Space had commented February 11th, Flare Network is the project. Flare Network is the project which will help take Ripple to $1 trillion company. Man, we'll see. We'll see how that unfolds, but that's great. People are still so hyper focused on the yes, today, right now. These guys aren't even developed yet, right? They're in development, right? The Flare Tech does do this, yes. You know, it is a powerhouse. It can transform the XRPL beyond payments into the tokenization platform with privacy, right? It can help do that. It's already bringing to, XRP to institutional cable. It's already doing all these things, but it's still not there yet, right? It's still in development. It's still building, still growth. Everything's still new in crypto, but that's utility, solving a problem, real solution, focused on real world utility. That's it, and we're building and we're growing and things are amazing, right? Really, really amazing. At least getting that way. It's not there yet. It's still speculative. Something can happen globally and all of a sudden crypto's done. I mean, I don't see that that's going to be the case, being the fact of everyone's involvement now on a global scale, governments, institutions with Bitcoin and other crypto assets, and they see the value, plus the speed at which AI is developing that needs this on-chain access to finance, to currency, to asset. AI is going to be very instrumental in all of these different elements as well, as we get rid of a lot of the fat within these corporations, which is unfortunately, people, human employment. But that's also what bogs companies down, or let's say bogs transactions down, and makes transactions more costly. So here, the king was saying, when they finally take on crypto, they will want yield on stable. That's it. They want all that. They want the banks definitely will want to find a path to get yield on stable coins. 100%. 100%. Yes. There you go. There's another one. Jim Dubois is saying Flare is a sleeping giant along with Hedera, the Hedera hash graph. There's so much going on, right? And to see all these techs, we got to stop just being hyper focused only on Ripple. Ripple is out building Ripple, right? They're building their institutional banking platform that is going to eventually I don't even think it's going to use XRP. Built on the XRPL, utilizing the RLUSD. Most banks don't want to transact or use XRP, but you give them a stable coin, of course they're going to want to transact over a stable coin if it's efficient and easy access, easy to use, maintains the peg to the US dollar, and that's it. That's all they know. That's all they care about. So if I'm going to put, a $1 million transaction through, you can't lose because there was a drop in the market today, right? You have a 5, 6, 7% pullback on the XRP, and all of a sudden your transaction devalued, or if it was a flash crash on the XRP while they're in the middle of doing their transaction and they get caught up somehow in the flash crash. I think there was a lot of, elements to that we have to really consider with the RLUSD, with the stablecoin assets. It just simplifies the banking side of it to get involved with the crypto assets. That's my opinion. I could be way off base. I could be wrong with that. I think that seems to be the leverage. I don't know what you guys think. If you see that also kind of being within that. I see a cheers. What is that saying? That your future is shaped by the habits you repeat, not the goals you set. Oh, I like that. That's good. That's solid. That really makes a lot of sense. If you keep repeating the same stuff, you expect different outcomes. Not going to happen. Yes. Okay. Oh man, I'm way past the bottom of the hour. I want to play this. I wrote this song for the giveaway. This is for the Badass Yeti giveaway. We haven't even pulled up the giveaway tool. I wasn't sure if I was going to do it, but we might as well get this going. So let me see the StreamYard giveaway. Shoot. I was down at the Tiki Bar at the beach today. What a beautiful day it was. We went down there probably around 4 o'clock. We were there got there a little after 4, probably like an hour and a half, sitting at the beach on the boardwalk at our favorite Tiki Bar, having a couple of beers. That was awesome. That place it's so amazing. All right, here we go. We get the giveaway live stream. All right, it's going to be Yeti, right? So you guys know what it is. You guys know we got 5 entrants already. Let's put the song on YETI. You know, if you guys are new here, you've never done that before, make sure you have your Zaman wallet ready too. Get that Zaman wallet so we can easily transfer it over Yeti. But I'm going to play. Let me play the song here. There's no video, just music. It's real fast. It's going to be a fast song. Let me make sure this is the right one though. Hang on a second. Okay, that's not it. Wait a minute. Where is the song? It did not upload. All right. Give it a minute while I go through and confirm where it went. I saw it was too long of a song. Am I in the video? Oh, you know what? I'm trying to upload it into videos. That's what I did. I was trying to upload to video and actually add the music. So this is called Ass Kickers Industry. I'll play it. It's processing right now. That's why it didn't process before. There it is. Okay, here we go. Let's play this song. Here we go.
There's fire inside. Going in overdrive. Full stride.
There you go. This is badassery. That's right. So make sure you type that in, and when we get to it, we will do the drawing. But that was the bottom of the hour. This is it right here. Badass Yeti from the Badass Yeti White Tribe of Clan Ass Kickers. There he is right there. Guy's pretty badass. Badass Yeti 1228. When we get to him in a little bit, we will do the drawing for him. All right, now let's kind of sidestep here. Let's talk a little bit about the voting fraud. Why do we have to talk about the geopolitical after we clear up everything with crypto, understand kind of the direction dynamic that cryptocurrencies are moving in? We know that we want to get there, but there's this other dynamic. If our elections are ripe with fraud, if our budget, our tax dollars are ripe with fraud, if we have $1 trillion in tax dollars that go to NGOs that end up funding terrorism and funding entities that are trying to take down the United States, or if you're in another country and you have similar types of issues with fraud, you got to be careful. So number one, when we look in the US, we saw a 2020 election cycle. Became very evident that there was cheating going on in the political system. And we have to say, okay, well, what's going on? Well, here we go. Georgia ballots have been identified as counterfeit, and nearly every single ballot went to Joe Biden. This stuff was talked about in 2020. The infrastructure that was in place, whether it was some of the rhino Republicans that wanted to maintain the power because they're lifer elected officials, their entire career is based on lie and deception because they're lifelong elected officials. They don't do anything else. They've never done anything in their life, but they've spent, 30, 40 years as an elected representative. Every 2 years they go and get elected again. That's not a real job. I'm sorry. That's a part-time gig. You do it part-time to represent the people, you get the heck out. If you do it for forever, it's a corruptive position. Power and the money that gets thrown at you can't be there. Now, it's been very obviously documented, whether it was in Michigan, Georgia, Arizona, Wisconsin, and elsewhere, that there were systematic problems going on within the supervisor of election, whoever is responsible. Colorado is another one. The supervisor of election or the secretary of state in Colorado went to jail over this. And now the current one is covering up the fraud. I mean, it's crazy. She went to jail because she called out the fraud. And then it's insane. So, but here you go, right with this one. Fraud lawsuit filed by Sidney Powell in Georgia details the use of counterfeit ballots. An affidavit filed with Powell's lawsuit reveals that Georgia's counterfeit ballots could be identified by darker water. And there's all stuff that we saw then. Right, all these things, right? Almost 100% of the counterfeit ballots went to Biden. So it was documented. There's video documentation. There's enough testimonial documentation. And now they're seeing what happened in Fulton. The FBI took all they have all their files. They took all their files. They know what happened, right? And that was in Georgia, right? And then if we go from Georgia, we go to Michigan. Now let's go to Michigan. Michigan, I was told by someone who was there firsthand. At the facility, while they're putting up the pizza boxes on the window, somebody called me and they said, "This is what's happening. We're trying to see inside." And they're covering the windows with pizza boxes, and we can no longer see what's going on inside. Now, if you have to do that and you're shutting down the count and all of this stuff is happening and you have to put up pizza boxes so people can't look in, something's happening in Detroit. There's fraud going on. Now, this was Michigan House. This is from so the Michigan House Committee meeting exposes massive mail-in ballot fraud operation, registering ineligible voters to cast fraudulent and absentee ballots for overseas voters, with ballots being misdirected to local addresses, with voter roll inaccuracies and votes cast without individuals' knowledge during the 17, 20, 21, 22, and 24 elections. This is beyond wild. Some of the address that these overseas ballots were being redirected to were locations filled with illegal immigrants where most couldn't even speak English. So they were cooking the books and sending multiple ballots meant for overseas to local addresses and getting illegal immigrants to fill them out to steal the 2020 election. If we don't do something about this, we're going to lose our republic. That's exactly right. It's exactly what we're going to lose. So let's watch.
These was absentee voters. We obtained a list of people that they had sent ballots to, that the ballots returned but still voted. So that raised our suspicions. So what we did was we obtained this list, and what we found out is that it was no way people was voting absentee because they never sent ballots or applications to the overseas address for them to return it. They actually listed that they sent the actual ballots to the Detroit addresses versus the overseas address, but a ballot was still cast, and they not. It's no way they cast a ballot for a person in Germany when they sent the ballot to the west side on 7 Mile. There's no way that person voted from Germany. And it's right here. You can see Mary Elaine Beckman, She was voting out of a house that was full of immigrants. They couldn't even speak no English when we went to the house. No lie. They couldn't even talk to us in English. They was all living in this house. They didn't know no Mary Elaine Beckham. Now, we do understand that you do not have to live at that residence when you move overseas. The current residents do not have to know you. We understand all that. But the law also say that that must be your last address when you moved overseas.
We're seeing the tip of the iceberg, right? There's so many things. I just want to say Stacey Abrams can't vote because she was convicted of voter fraud for voting in person and then by mail. Imagine that. Imagine someone who's trying to get elected to the governor position of Georgia. She wanted to be governor of Georgia, and she was committing voter fraud, voting in person and mailing it in. Now, the one thing that each and every one of these scenarios has in common is that those that were responsible for the organization of it were creating an environment where it was complete chaos, always disorganized, always in a situation where they could say, oh, look, it's just disorganized. Nobody knows what's going on. We didn't know what was going on. You just don't understand. There's just so many things happening here. That's exactly what happened in Broward County with the supervisor of election when governor when the governor was elected here in Florida. We almost had that crazy guy elected. Instead, we got DeSantis. But we had to fight for it. 2018 had to fight to make sure that DeSantis was the victor. And people gathered in mass numbers in front of the Secretary of State. When he got into office, he removed the Secretary of State because it was so disorganized, but it was on purpose. It was all by design in order for them to try to cheat the system. And unfortunately, that's just what happens, right? So here's another one. So this one, let's listen to this real quick. Now, we saw all these things unfolding when it was happening, right? And this was Detroit, 120% voter turnout in Detroit. So as we go back, and you have to look at all this stuff, you have to go back, but all the receipts are now being shown, just like in Fulton County. They went and they picked everything up, but now if we go beyond that voter, the fraud, what are the Democrats concerned about? What the Democrats are concerned about? Here we go. Hang on. Oh,
to get any
oh, that's
kind
so
of voter
funny.
ID
Oh my God.
that more than 20
That's hilarious. My bad. So I'm sitting here watching. I was watching. My bad. That's really funny. I played something, but I didn't actually put it in. So let me hang on a minute. I was watching something. You guys didn't get to see it.
million legitimate
Yeah.
people, mainly poorer people and people of color, will not be able to vote under this law. We will not let it pass in the Senate. We are fighting it tooth and nail. It's an outrageous proposal that is, that shows the sort of political bias of the MAGA right. They don't want poor people to vote. They don't want people of color to vote because they often don't vote for them.
About 83% of the American people, including majority Democrats, support voter ID laws.
So you look at what the Democrats are trying to do. They twist it. Look at his face. They know they're lying. They're terrified. They're absolutely terrified. The majority of the country want voter ID. What do they go to? They could come up and they concoct this racist notion that having a voter ID is somehow racist. The Democrat statement is so demeaning and demoralizing that they would say that just because of someone's race or ethnicity that they won't get a voter ID when a voter ID is needed, or an ID, a photo ID, not a photo ID. When a photo ID is needed for pretty much everything that you do in society, from banking to driving to buying alcohol to what you can fill in the blanks. Their notion is so everything they talk about throughout time has been demeaning, though. If you think about affirmative action and the way they just want to demean and put down and belittle what people can do for themselves, and they they make it sound real nice, just like they're doing right now. They single out women who are getting married or got married, so they'll single them out, and then they'll make it racist, and then based on ethnicity. But the way they say it, and they're making this directed, not even assumption, but statement that because of the race or ethnicity, you're not going to have a photo ID because you can't get one. It's so disgusting, demeaning, demoralizing. I mean, I can't ever, to me, I would be just livid. I'm just pissed, because they're always trying to find their path and their way to snake around and use other groups, and let's call them the minority groups. Right now, their big group that they want to use are the illegals, right? And they call it Jim Crow. But will we ever say that the Jim Crow laws were actually enacted by the Democrats? They're the ones who put it in place. So, right, Jim Crow is just as bad as them yelling Russia, Russia, right? It's lies, fear, it's all fear mongering. But we have to be cognizant of that. We have to understand this part, because then we also have to figure out, how do we get the Clarity Act? How do we get to regulatory clarity for crypto? How do we get to that path? How do we make sure that we have proper elected? Do you think an elected official like Schumer is really going to want you to have some path to decentralization, to having crypto? He's going to do everything he can to stop you from getting cryptocurrency without him figuring out a way to get an auto taxation of every transaction. They're super giddy about digital currency. They want a central bank digital currency, regulated, controlled, and programmable. So that way, anything you buy is auto taxed. Any earning you have is auto taxed. You have no say in the matter. Plus, they want to take away 100% of your privacy. They want every transaction to be visible. And you don't have to go too far, because you take that same mentality, go to Canada, and let's see what they're trying to do right now in Canada, implementing crazy laws. Go over to Spain and see what they just did by giving 500,000 illegals. They want to give them direct path to vote. Why vote? Why do they want to make them legal? These illegals that came in without vetting. Why are they in such a rush? Why was the Biden administration and the Democrats today, why are they in such a rush to give and have these illegals here? Why are they letting the illegals on the streets? You bring them in. They also want to destabilize society. They almost did it with COVID. It was such a perfect test case. They attack you monetary gain. They attack you on healthcare, and they make your streets less safe. If your streets are less safe, you don't have money, and you're worried about health, then you're going to continuously be in a cycle of survival. They want people in survival mode, because if you're in survival mode, meaning survival today mode, you're just trying to get by till tomorrow. You're not thinking about the corruptive nature of the government, the authoritarian structure of the government. Why do they keep labeling MAGA or Trump as fascist when he's there liberating and freeing the people from their communist mindset? So they're going to relabel it, and they want you to believe. And then they set their foot soldiers. First, they had the BLM movement and Antifa. So now Antifa's on a global scale, murdering people on a global scale, and attacking people on a global scale. And it's financed and funded by the NGOs. The $1 trillion that went missing of taxpayer money that went to the NGOs is funding this terrorism that's happening on a global scale. And this is exactly what's happening. All this stuff's being revealed But we have to understand that that this is all happening so that we can make sure we don't get these people in, because we care about the technology we want, right? We care about Flare. I want to see Flare succeed. I want to see an environment where our crypto assets that we're invested in, everyone can, gain, huge rewards from it. Want to see that grow. Want to see an environment of decentralization to where our next generation can also find a path to earn directly, from their own direct efforts. They don't want that. These people are the exact opposite. Democrats will never let their constituents get off the government teat and plantation. That's right. They always want them. And it's all through that fear mongering, right? Like what Bruce was saying, it's all fear mongering. That's how they've successfully done it. Why is it that, they go after groups and they use the fear, right? And they put the fear of God in them. So that way they think that, oh yeah, the Democrats are supporting me, but it's never been that way, ever. So anyhow, all right, let's go. Let me go to the next one here. This is another good one. Stopping the flow of funds. Oh, this is what I wanted to show. This went back to the Secretary of State from Colorado. Hang on a second. Let's see. Okay. So this is the current Secretary of State. Yes, current Secretary of State in Colorado. But let me just, this statement here was Democrat Colorado Secretary of State Jenna Griswold sent out 30,000 mailers to illegals telling them to register to vote. In 22, so here's the statement from here that we're going to listen to. In 2022, your office sent out mailers to 30,000 non-citizens, inviting them to register to vote. That same year, your office used Colorado's ballot tracking system to send messages to specific Coloradans, encouraging them to vote when in fact they had already voted. Now, what do you think her answer is going to be when he asked her to resign? Now, what happened? Right, Tina Peters. What happened to Tina Peters? She's in jail for calling out the fraud of what was going on. And here you have the patsy, right? This woman there, and you look at her just void of like emotion, intelligence. I don't see much in her eyes. It's just like this blank, stare. But let's put this comment here. It's a really short, but let's look at what she has to say here. Look at this.
A final question. This is not the first time that your office has made mistakes that have damaged voters' confidence in our elections. In 2020.
Wait, so mistakes. These mistakes are by design. Again, they make them look like mistakes, just like what happened at the Secretary of State office in Broward County. They make it seem like it's a mistake. They make it seem like it's chaotic. They're not mistakes. They 100% by design, 100% purposeful. There's no way they're making these kind of mistakes on this scale if it wasn't on purpose. So here.
Voters' confidence in our elections. In 2022, your office sent out mailers to 30,000 non-citizens, inviting them to register to vote. They, of course, are not eligible to register to vote. That same year, your office used Colorado's ballot tracking system to send messages to specific Coloradans, encouraging them to vote when, in fact, they had already voted, causing confusion that had to be cleaned up by the county clerks. And now this leak of the voting system passwords. Given your office's repeated errors that have damaged confidence in our elections, which you say is paramount, will you resign?
Absolutely not, Kyle.
Absolutely not. Look at this.
And I just want to, you're unfairly characterizing and
look at this. The look, like, is there a lack of intelligence? I don't know what it is, but there's just something missing just in the stare, in the lack of emotion. Is it practiced? Total rehearsed. There's something just missing. It's very bizarre, but mistake after mistake after mistake that all turned up that they were getting massive amounts of people to vote fraudulently, whether they were illegal or they're getting people to vote a second time. Now, and then they released the passwords, and it's amazing to me that you have someone like that, and then you have Tina Peters that I believe is still in jail, and it's gonna be difficult to get her out potentially. Well, now maybe not. Maybe now they'll be able to release her. It's just crazy that we're living through these times, but crazy that so many people out there don't even really know what's really going on or really care to know what's really going on. This is Secretary Department of Homeland Security Kristi Noem, frozen hundreds of millions in federal grants to NGOs. She's exposed Democrats as running a shadow government through a maze of NGOs to undermine U.S. national security and facilitates mass illegal immigration. It's crazy, right? We don't have to play all of it. Let's just play the beginning of it.
That we have stopped all grant funding that's being abused by NGOs to facilitate illegal immigration into this country. So it's amazing to me the hundreds of millions of dollars that have been spent by the federal government that has been sent to NGOs to facilitate this invasion of our country. So I've taken action to stop those funds, to reevaluate them, and to make sure that we're actually using the taxpayer dollars in a way that strengthens this country, that keeps us safe. So I think people are curious when we look at grants that are given out by federal agencies at how they're utilized, and that evaluation needs to be done. We're not spending another dime to help the destruction of this country. We're going to make.
Yeah, I mean, that's mind-boggling, right? That this has been happening to aid and abet, the destruction of the country by bringing these people over. Now, let's also be very cognizant of some of these senators that are overseas. Now, if we saw Marco Rubio did a phenomenal job, right, speaking when he was over there in Germany. Hillary Clinton, not so much. A Czech politician calls her out, basically calling her out on her Trump derangement syndrome, just crazy stuff. But here's Senator Alyssa Slotkin. Now, this is crazy, right? This is just in Germany questioning. I mean, first of all, she's commenting almost like in a negotiation style, saying that, what Trump is, that she's in fear and what Trump is doing. I mean, it's just so crazy when you see what these elected officials, and they need to be held to account. They should. This behavior, it is definitely bordering on treason.
I stand here as an American senator feeling very concerned about the 2026 elections in November. He is telling us what he wants to do. He is laying it out for us and is up.
This is in front of the Europeans, front of the world. This is dirty laundry. You want to have your talking points with your Democrats. Look how uncomfortable everyone is on stage because they know it's all bullshit. 100% they know it's bullshit.
To the Americans to believe him, right? That just like in 2020, he said, if I don't win, then it wasn't a free and fair election. He is repeating the playbook, now threatening to put uniformed federal agents around polling locations. I mean, he's telling us the playbook. So
what is she trying to do? What is she actually trying to say? Is she calling for help? Is it a plea? Like, what exactly is she saying? And what is she doing in this state? It's a little mind-boggling that she doesn't face some sort of penalty when she comes back to the U.S. for what she's doing. And this is a very destabilizing talk of what she's doing as a seated U.S. senator.
the question is, what are we going to do as Americans to defend our democracy that we helped invent? Okay. And that, to me, that process that's going on right now, which is playing out in front of all of you, it's not like we like coming here and talking to you about the difficulties in our own country. No one likes to do that. But
this is after Marco Rubio got up and spoke. I believe this was after. Marco Rubio crushed it. Marco Rubio got a standing ovation from the same crowd that she's talking to. So it's just they're losing the narrative. They're flipping out. They're losing the narrative. They don't know what to do. Let me show you this. And then I want to do that. Leave you guys with the $1 trillion in fraud. Hang on. Let me put this up. This is amazing. Same group of people that she was just talking to. And then here's Marco Rubio. Standing ovation. You think they're listening to her? The whole crowd was uncomfortable. Standing ovation for Marco Rubio. Every one of them. Every one of them. That tells you everything you need to know. His speech, standing ovation. He's going to sit down and have more of a talk. And she's up there, Hillary Clinton, all of them. They're up there spreading falsities, and they're just trying to protect their base and their power, their base of power. And there's Marco Rubio, standing ovation. That tells you everything you need to know on a global level. You know, the fact that Italy, Japan, El Salvador, Argentina, Costa Rica, how many others are going to get in line? I'm afraid, England might be a little too late, but we see someone stepping up now that wants to fight back politically and run, for prime minister. So, and he's going to pour a huge amount of money into it as well. So a lot of things that are chaotic, whereas at the same time, we're very cognizant of what we need to do, who we need to vote for, why elections matter, why they're significant, what we've seen over the past years of a previous administration trying to destroy crypto, trying to put America last. Now America first, not America only. The libertarians with their American only agenda is super destructive. They don't understand the global world. They don't understand what it takes to actually live and coexist in this world, or they don't care. But America first, from our perspective, being in the United States, we got to look out for our interest. Every country should look out for their interest. That's what's most important. And then we all figure out how to get together. And that's it. But check this one out. This is kind of the last video that I wanted to play. But this one is also really, really crazy.
Alexander Hamilton warned that foreign powers would try to exploit America's freedoms to sow divisions inside our country. Well, today we are confronting a raft of allegations and reports that foreign influence and foreign money is making its way into the American political system and is financing activities that is not only destructive, detrimental, and divisive, but also potentially illegal. What organizations have been active on the ground in Minnesota? What can you tell us?
We have tracked over $60 million to approximately 14 groups, some of them national, others on the ground.
Where's this money coming from?
Networks like the Soros Network, the Arabella Funding Network. They'll fund directly some of these on-the-ground organizations. And we've seen this happen time and again. It's not just in Minnesota. The foreign money is probably the most concerning, whether it's from Neville Roy Singham or the Swiss billionaire Hans-Jörg Wyss.
You're telling me that protest, quote unquote, protest activity we've seen in Los Angeles, we've seen in Minnesota, we've seen in other places that often turns violent, that some of this, maybe much of it, is funded by overseas money, including by this individual who has ties to the Chinese Communist Party? Are the majority of these protests spontaneous or more organized?
They're highly organized and coordinated. They've trained some 30,000 observers to get in the middle of the protests.
How would you describe the tactics that are used?
Doxing. We've seen instances of violence against federal agents. One had their finger bitten off, and they've been pelted with frozen bottles, stones, and every other type of thing, in addition to directly interfering with legal law enforcement.
At the same time, more and more Americans are rightly concerned about the use of their tax dollars and where their tax money is being spent around the country. If you are a hardworking American taxpayer, you must feel so taken advantage of. In the last 2 years alone, nearly $700 million in cold hard cash was stuffed into suitcases and flown out of Minneapolis.
700 million.
70% of that loot flows overseas.
It goes to terrorism, it goes to child trafficking, it goes to drugs. That's all funded by people like me that pay taxes.
His tax money is being used to buy other people luxury items, cars, yachts, whatever else, and is going to fund terrorism and child trafficking.
Yes, sir.
$1 trillion a year on this stuff.
$115 million.
$1 trillion. $1 trillion a year is going in fraud. It's just crazy. And then you had that senator saying that Trump is the problem, that MAGA is the problem, that America First is the problem. This is what they created. They created this atmosphere. They created all of this. This is the power they want to hold on to. They love that $1 trillion in tax money going into the NGOs, USA, all those other organizations that were funneled back into the coffers of the Democrat Party. Then you have some of the Rhino Republicans. You think that somehow they're excluded. The Rhino Republicans, that Republican in name only, for anyone who doesn't know, the Rhino Republican is Republican in name only. They have the R. They might vote much of the time. They claim to be Republican, but they're there for one thing: self preservation. They want to maintain. They're there to make money. They're there to enrich themselves and create as much of that money for their future and their family as a legacy as possible. They don't care about anything else. And we have seen that at most of them, or many of them, are career politicians. They might have had a career, but you look at like a Biden, had zero career before he became a career politician. Didn't have any real life work. Bernie Sanders, no real life experience. AOC, who's newer, she's not a lifer. She was a bartender. She won a competition and has no real work experience that would qualify her for the job that she's doing. And that one after another, and they're there. And that's it. They're there for themselves. They're there to make money. Handpicked in that case of AOC and the rest of her clan, handpicked to be put in that position so they could create this media hype around it. And then that's where we're at. That's why we need transparency. That's why we need blockchain voting. That's why we need the crypto assets. That's why we need decentralization. That's why Trump is the most pro-crypto president that's ever been, and everyone around him. And the direction that we're moving the country is the right direction because there's so many that are trying to take action against it when we're liberating our country. And the UK has to liberate their country. And Japan just made massive moves to liberate their country and make sure that they are maintaining throughout the generations. Very, very critical. We're at an important juncture right now. The leftists, the Democrat, whatever label you want to give them, is playing a very dangerous game to maintain their power by inviting the Islamists and bringing in these illegals from around the world into the countries unfettered. And you look at the mission statement of the Islamist groups, it's to destabilize and topple Western civilization. Anywhere they've gone, why are we not hearing about what's going on in Nigeria? Why have we never heard about what happened in the Sudan? Why aren't we hearing about those things? What about Lebanon? Why doesn't anyone care about the fact that Lebanon used to be predominantly a Christian country? Why isn't anyone concerned about Syria or Iraq or any of those countries? Why doesn't anyone ever talk about the history? Why doesn't anyone talk about that the historical artifacts are being destroyed by the Islamists in all those countries? Why isn't anyone concerned about the 30, 40, 50,000 plus Iranians that have been murdered in a very short period of time? Some are putting that number at around 80,000 have been murdered. No one talks about this. The mainstream media doesn't talk about. The leftists definitely don't talk. All the leftists want you to believe in is that somehow the whole focus on anyone in that region that's been disrupted are somehow the quote unquote Palestinian Arabs. They're the only ones. But yet the Islamist cause of Hamas and the others that are directly affiliated are all terrorist entities. They're all there to destabilize the region. They have never brought anything of benefit other than destabilizing civil society, whether it was in Jordan, and Jordan had Black September in 72, whether it was, again, the destabilization of Lebanon, the destabilization of Syria, you can go on and on and on and on, but the global media and the leftist propaganda will have you believe one thing when in fact it isn't true. And their agenda, though, is very true, and we're seeing it unfold across the globe. We see it everywhere. We see it in France. Why is France destabilizing? Why is the UK destabilizing? Why is Canada in trouble right now? Because they have a population of 30 million, and soon 30% of their population, the whole country is going to flip, right? You have crazies up there running the governments in Canada. That's got to change. If the Canadians really care and want to maintain their society, civil society, Japan, again, just enacted something because they know exactly what's coming and they want to protect. And that's it. But we have to be very aware, and it comes back down to transparency. So we have to be transparent, and it's going to come down to the decentralization is transparency and is freedom. And that's our mantra. Those are my points of today. But appreciate everybody being on here with us tonight. Before we do this drawing, let's get that ready. Let me pull this guy up. Let's just play this song one more time. And this is the guy here. So we got the Yeti. Throw in, if you're still here, type in Yeti. Let's play this song, and then I'll pull up the giveaway tool.
There's fire inside, flowing in overdrive. Full stride.
All right. This is badassery. This is the drawing for the Badass Yeti ass kicker. So if you guys are ready for that, let's go. All right. Rod Hale. Look at that. Rod is the big winner of the day. Rod, are you still here? Rod Hale is getting hooked up with some badass Yetis. Didn't win for a long time, and then had one given, and then won, and now winning. So Rod, if you are here, Rod Hale, it's time to claim your badass Yeti. Now, if you're not here, you know what we got to do? We're going to have to run it again, and we will have to go through and run it one more time. This might have been rigged. So you got to, Rod is here. Awesome. Rod is here. Very good. All right, Rod, here we go. That's amazing. Back to back. I think you're taking Charles' place. So Charles used to be the most winningest. So let me just grab this. And Rod, I am going to transfer this bad boy over to you in 2 seconds. So let's me just pull this down real quick so I can move these around. And get ready, Rod, because I'm going to move this bad boy over to you and make sure. And I saw that after we went through that brief tutorial, you were able to figure it out and claim your badass Yetis that were hanging out there, which was awesome. So what we do is we open up the app and then we're going to scan. Got to do the thumbprint, hit the little blue box at the bottom, and then I'm going to scan it from this side. And then it takes like 2 seconds. This is amazing, right? So we're using the Zaman wallet. They're bringing back the XRP tip bot, by the way. I can't wait for the XRP tip bot to come back. We'll start engaging within the show again. It was a lot of fun to use. It was showing back when they first had it out, you know, full real world utility of how it could work. And there you go, Rod. It's been transferred over to you. Congratulations for winning a badass Yeti, an ass kicker. Enjoy that. There it is again, ass kicker number 1228. And we will check you guys out. We'll be back Wednesday night, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Both Chip and I will be here. Appreciate everyone for hanging in there, being there with us. King saying Rod cheated. It was rigged. It was definitely rigged. That was awesome. Yeah, appreciate that. Thank you, SoFlo. An hour and a half rant. That was it. Okay, check you guys out on the next one. I am out of here if I can find the outro. I'll see you Wednesday night.
Are you down with OTC? Please like, subscribe, and click the bell to be notified when the next video drops.